Okay.
So we got an announcement to make. We had 2 resignations from Mark Pellegrini, the president, who resigned, and we asked Jay Trukowski to resign. I don't even get into the dirty details of why, but there's just been constant conflict for a while, and it's just come to a head, and it's basically, we didn't even know that it was happening until we got here tonight, so just to let you guys know.
So they both resigned?
They are both.
One resigned, one was asked to resign.
One resigned, one was asked to resign.
And did?
And yes, yes.
Who asked him to resign?
The board here asked Jay to resign. Okay. So it was, I couldn't see any other option. So, anything to add? Threw us for a curveball.
Did you elect a president and treasurer?
Not yet.
Okay, yet to be done, okay.
So we're just in an interim situation here, and the 4 of us need to get together and kind of make some decisions about the way forward. That's not going to happen here tonight, but the 4 of us will get together in an executive session to make some decisions.
With input from us tonight, right?
We're going to go forward with the agenda tonight. You know, and input from you on the agenda tonight, yes.
So, what's the procedures to hear residents' testimony and questions?
So we were, hold on a second, just, there should be, just wait a second. Okay, so we're on, alright, so originally, Mark was going to talk about, procedures to hear residents' testimony and questions. Do you want to say something about that, or you want me to?
We basically decided that we were going to offer them a chance to speak prior to us actually having the meeting.
Right,
Right. 3 minutes each.
right, but I think we had decided that we were going, as we go through the issues, that people could give feedback as we go through the issues. And we said a limit of 3 minutes, and I posted on the agenda aloha etiquette that was used when we had the civil defense meetings. I think it worked pretty well, so we can work together. Listen to understand, be respectful, be precise, and whatever petition, agree with, disagree, challenge ideas, not people.
So where is this?
So, then he was going to, Mark, we'll have to come back to this, but he was going to talk about door violation letters and the lawsuit, and I have no information about that. Do you have information?
I don't have any information.
So, what?
That's probably going to have to paperwork. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have to take care of that at a subsequent meeting. What we do have to discuss to get the input of residents who's actually coming here are draft charters, because the future of Leilani very much rests with these committees. And we already have 3 draft charters to discuss. And Chris, I would suggest that each person who drafted that charter maybe lead the discussion. And I'll just take notes in terms of comments, okay?
Okay, I want to make sure everybody has a charter and that you read the charters. If you have any questions regarding the charter.
Is this on the handout, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are these videotapes are on there so people can see them?
No, no.
Yeah,
Can you hold it up and get it?
Well, we can upload it to the website.
I'll put it all up on the thing so they've all got it.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Chris, we're coming back to the one about your residence testimony later? Okay.
You saw that in the system audit? The system audit, is that when you started off with?
I'm going to read my headline, headings, and if you have any questions regarding the heading, then you can ask questions, and then I can jot that down. And then, so each one, you have, you can,
Which one are we looking at first?
CCNR, CCNR, right?
I heard system audit one.
Oh, no, that's not right.
Okay, fine.
Is there a handout for the CCNRs?
Yeah, yeah, there's one about the CCNR.
No, system audit, fine.
Yeah.
It's front and back, and did you not get one?
No.
Right here.
Do you want to hear your input?
Does anybody need a CCNR one? I have three now.
Could I suggest politely, these things look to be pretty thorough, and I'm sure you guys spent many, many hours putting them together. So, inasmuch as we've had some issue already, and we're going to talk about more, I would recommend that now that we have these in hand, we take time to review them and comment next meeting. Because this is pretty,
This is kind of hard to do. 10 seconds.
So, what do you think that maybe you need time to look over it?
We were going to read these out loud?
I
Is that
was,
the-
but
Yeah, I think we read it out loud and have a discussion on what. Yeah, I mean, we'll take our time, we're not in any rush. And so we're all clear, you know, we're not actually, no rush. So I just would suggest kind of either you or someone else actually read each section.
I agree. Okay, so the purpose of this committee, so it's a committee, is to review the LCA's CCNRs and then determine the feasibility of changing definitions, procedures, and priorities for enforcement of the CCRs in Leilani, Section 2. The mission is to create a system that creates consistent yet intelligent enforcement of the CCRs with regards to Leilani's agricultural land use designation, local building, and cultural practices, as well as our ability to change the CCRs that exist but do not serve our community in the current post-eruption and absolutely for surety pre-eruption of Kiloware's East Rift Zone environment. Any questions?
Yeah, could you explain what you mean, and absolutely with surety, pre-eruption of Kiloware's East Rift Zone environment? What does that mean?
Feedback, for sure. Well, you know, what happened, right? We're changed, we're different.
Right, I get that. No, that part, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's just the last phrase I would get.
Surety, surety.
the next one.
With that surety pre-eruption. Yeah.
Pre-eruption.
It will erupt again. With surety. With,
Well, not necessarily like
you. But
So I would just recommend, and some of this is conjecture, I would just recommend that we have a changing, make this simple, my philosophy is keep things as simple as possible. And I would just recommend that we know the conditions have changed, and we need to make corresponding, changes in the CCNRs to reflect that change.
In the sentence after current post-eruption period.
2 sentences instead of 1 word.
Does that help? Anything else?
Right, so we can see, and put a period after post eruption,
Okay,
same.
got it.
Fine, thank you.
Okay. Can we move on to the next one? Type of committee and area of the program. We would expect for this committee to be a standing committee, so that there is always an entity to work with residents on CCR issues. This will allow LCA to respond quickly and fairly to the residents' concerns and changing environments with LCA. This committee would serve as the arms between the board of directors and the corporation membership to ensure the concerns regarding the CCR's enforcement meet the requirement of our governing documents, requiring that the cooperation shall organize and operate exclusively for general public social welfare and safety purposes, to promote and encourage a better community and civil spirit among and to foster goodwill and friendship between all property owners of this portion of Leilani Estates, hereby referred to, and to cooperate with civil and public organizations for general welfare of the peoples of the island of Hawaii and of the state of Hawaii. Can you repeat that?
By the way, I really like that first paragraph. That's wonderful.
I have a quick comment. I'm just kind of an editor, and I don't want to waste anybody's time, but, you know, we got apostrophes and a couple commas misplaced.
Please help me.
Okay, I'll show you later what it is.
Thank you. Alright. Okay, and the membership. Membership in this committee should be 3 to 7 members from the Leilani Estates community. So, would you volunteer?
I think that should be in the Leilani Estates Community Section 2. The CCNR is the other section.
Yeah.
That's really-
Chairperson for this standing committee shall be a member of the Leilani Estates board of directors elected or appointed by the LCA board. The committee shall have 1 co-chair that is appointed by the board of directors or the appointed chairperson as decided by the board of directors. Initially, the chair of the committee will be me. Any questions? Any changes?
So I have a question. Shall have 1 co-chair, so it says, so what you're really saying is in fact, there are 2 chair people governing this committee, am I correct about that?
The co-chair is not there, I'm hoping that
So we have like a vice chair.
Yes, different levels.
No,
Well, Andy, you say no?
no, it's co-chair.
Yeah, co-chair is different from vice.
I know, I understand, that I understand, but I want.
Yeah, no.
Continuity to be
The
clear.
chair of the committee doesn't act in the same capacity as the president of the board of directors. The chair of the committee purely acts as a facilitator for the committee and votes and is an equivalent member of that committee.
Right.
And so assigning a chair, vice chair, creates an inference of hierarchy, and a committee has no hierarchy. And so co-chair is the right term.
Well, that doesn't really, fine, I have no problem with that, but I just want to get clarity here.
What would be the purpose of the co-chair as opposed to chair?
Yeah, that's what I'm not,
Clear on
yeah, that's what
why
I'm,
one would need, you have the committee, you want to keep it simple, right? So you have the committee and.
The co-chair serves.
The chair.
The co-chair serves to chair the committee and either can chair the committee by mutual consent at any given moment. But if one of them is not there, then the other person becomes the chair.
Okay,
Okay,
so.
so- look, we're gonna do some research, because I have a different opinion, I think in fact you can have vice chairs on committees, but we'll sort that out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is it wise to have the board appoint the chair, or just let the committee vote on it, see?
Well, there's a comment exactly in that sentence. The committee shall have one co-chair that is appointed by the board or the appointed chairperson. And what that means is chairperson says, I want Sam, and the board says, we want Sally. Who prevails?
It says,
They're
as
both
decided
decided by
by
the
the board.
BOD according to what's written in.
I read that too, but that doesn't modify the sentence correctly.
On a board committee, every member of the committee seats by the approval of the board. And so no person can sit on a board committee without the approval of the board. And the membership is always submitted to the board, and the board has the right to reject the membership of any person for any reason, other than another member of the board of directors.
So then we don't need the words, or the appointed chairperson is decided. The committee shall have one co-chair that is appointed by the board. Simple as that.
It would be better to say appointed by the board or the appointed chairperson and approved by the board.
Yeah,
Not as
that's
decided.
All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna get this one removed. Okay. I just want to throw this out there. This is a very important committee, very important. And my thought is the person who's chair of the CCNR should be someone, my own personal preference, again, I'm speaking for myself, not the board, someone who sits regularly on board meetings. You know, that's how I view this position.
Constant communication.
Yeah.
The board, a board can opt by vote to have a committee chair be present at any board meeting they choose to have them at. And they can actually, they technically can actually make them a voting member of the board, although that requires a unanimous vote of the board. But they certainly can vote to have them at board meetings.
Okay, all right, we'll work on it.
Appreciate your input. Okay, now we're looking at activities, duties, and responsibilities. This committee will review and determine if our current CCRs can be changed. If so, they will determine required resources and timeline for the changes to be completed. This committee will review current CCRs for need and
Applicability.
Thank you very much. There's some words that my tongue can't say because of my language. In Leilani's current environment, do the CCRs serve the community's stated purpose? Curb appeal? Make sure those copies look good. To maintain copy values in our neighborhood. General public social welfare and safety purposes. Promote and encourage a better community and civil spirit among and to foster goodwill and friendship between property owners. This committee will determine and clarify the wording of current CCRs and confer with LCA's lawyer as to the legality of our current enforcement practices. This will be to determine if driveway easements are the responsibility of the lot owners or the easement owners LCA. This committee shall determine if there is an ability to enforce the CCRs fairly on all residents. No enforcement should be made if full enforcement is required. Assess to lots, inspection is required. Drone inspection, these are question marks. Legality, morality of these efforts, question mark. Does it foster goodwill and friendship to urge neighbors to report CCR violations that do not cause harm or nuisance? This committee will determine a policy and procedure for enforcement of valid CCR violation that meets state and local requirements. Meeting with homeowners and discussing compliance. Meeting must be documented and notes signed by committee members and residents. Assisting low-income residents by using volunteers and or funding from various charitable organizations or groups to assist in helping to resolve the CCR violations. Letters to homeowners or residents in violation. Timely wording for letters. Time allowed for corrections of deficiency. And coordination with legal team for further action. Any questions?
I take some exception with the very opening sentence. This committee will review and determine if our current CCNRs can be changed. I think that word should say should be changed. It seems to start out with an immediate inference that we want to change them, when there may be a lot of belief that we don't want to change them.
And would you clarify number 4? This committee shall determine if there is an ability to enforce the CCRs fairly on all residents, no question mark here, by the way. No enforcement should be made if full enforcement is not required.
It's either all or nothing.
So, let's
Just,
just,
no, I'm with
it's
you.
all or nothing, or in the event of chickens, if a lot of people don't care if there's chickens, just as an example, then it's just simply not enforced. I'm just throwing that out as a,
But it's still have, we still go back to that problem of having to change, actually get the vote to change the CCNRs. Okay? I mean, we can say all we want about this, but then there's the actual, how we're gonna actually get the membership to vote on this, right?
Foreign
We can talk about all we want, but if we don't get the vote, we don't, you know.
But it's also a matter of
But
clarification,
it's good to talk about.
because there's a lot of ambiguity in that.
Yeah.
To expand on just that thought for a moment, and I'll stay with chickens. I'm not a big fan of chickens, but I'll stay with chickens. Of chicken metaphors.
Appropriate.
And I'll use a highway metaphor. So speeding's against the law, and we all, I think I say without exception, we all break the law on Highway 130. Some of us break it at 46 miles an hour, and some of us break it at 86 miles an hour. And so fair and uniform enforcement doesn't imply any sense of quantification. So one chicken and 40 chickens are very, very different situations. And so I think that where you don't quantify things very specifically, we have to rely on the wisdom of the board to go back to the other criteria you very correctly put in, which is the maintenance of the value and the lifestyle of the properties, and respect for the neighbors. And so, so to say that if you're not going to enforce them uniformly, it opens the can of that now one chicken becomes 40 chickens. And it actually becomes an impossibility at the end of the day. So another thing that I see in here that raises some concern to me is where you're saying, and I think it's a wonderful part in the right place, where it says low-income residents. So who's low income?
Whoever feels low income.
Huh?
Whoever feels low income, I would think.
No, there's gotta be a defined number.
I think there has to be. I think it has to be quantified.
I think the poverty level, IRS poverty level.
Okay, well, that's fine, but that has to be. But that has to be spelled out.
and the second edge of Andy's comment, just not on the chickens, is as soon as we say, well, we're not going to do an enforcement on that, then we get to the aprons issue or the 800 square feet.
CCNRs are either enforced or they're not. You can't pick and choose which ones you want to enforce. It can't be done.
Right.
I mean, you can't do it.
Well,
Here's what you have to abide by, but these three don't have to.
No, I'm agreeing with you 100%, so, but we have to be clear about that.
But also on here, you have 4 and B, they contradict each other. B, the part you said, no enforcement should be made if 4 enforcement is not required. Then in B, you say, does it foster goodwill to report if it doesn't really cause harm? You either enforce or you don't.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, there's lots, I'm sorry, there's a lot of.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
This is an excellent first.
That's the whole point of doing this. That's what I'm saying.
So that's why I need your input, you know, and whatever we need to, you know.
So,
Whatever it is.
what I'm hearing is that you actually are more inclined to want universal enforcement of all CCNRs as written right now.
No, I'm saying if you have CCNRs that need to be enforced, you can't pick and choose which ones you enforce.
Right, which means that you're going to enforce them all.
As they're currently written, you have to. But the whole point of this is see if they can be changed. Which we've already spoken to the attorney, there's 2 options. One is to find the people that we don't know how to get in contact with. We can get them to vote. The only other option on there is a challenge in the court of law.
Is there a third option, or will you check with the attorney to send a letter to all of the residents saying effective, pick date, September 1st?
No.
The board has said this, and please respond, and if more than 26% respond, then we'll honor that. Otherwise, we're gonna affect this change on.
The actual idea I had, and I haven't brought it up to the new attorney, is if we do a vote, if we can legally say, if you do not respond, that's a vote of yes, or if you do not respond, that's a vote of no.
That's what I'm suggesting, yeah.
So that's something I brought up before we first started talking, but I haven't brought it up to the new attorney, it was just we were talking about. So that was another option that I thought that kind of a way around it.
Right.
Something we'd have to legally find out if we can do that. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's all good. You know, we need for this input.
This is something that needs to be done by the attorney, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
But the
The
wording,
committee,
everything
the
is.
committee is all about finding all these, the wording and
Right.
finding all these, and defining, right? That's what it's all about, is defining, this is just the general idea of what the committee's gonna work on.
Yes, but I think we should have an attorney review.
Oh, definitely.
Make sure that it's-
Well, the other thing I think that
It's not-
I think that under activities, duties, and responsibilities, I think what you've done is you've done some of the work the committee should do, which is the committee should fill in a lot of the A's and B's, and you might want to leave it a little more broad at the time of the formation of the committee.
I agree with that.
But it's a, great fodder for discussion.
Rachel's good, yeah, really great.
Can you elaborate, I don't know exactly what you mean, I understand about curb appeal, but I don't understand about the relationship between CCNRs and general public social welfare and safety purposes, or promote and encourage a better community and civic spirit among.
That's either a charter, I think that's a charter bylaw, what we're supposed to, that's the job of the duty, so she just incorporated it.
Oh, I see, okay, right.
I'm curious in regards to the legal status of the CCNRs versus the state ag regulations. How that plays out and what we establish versus if it should go to court, how the ag rules and state rules would be affected.
That's why we need the lawyer involved.
We're gonna hear shortly back from the lawyer on this.
Right.
That's one of the first things we actually proposed. Ask.
It's in the works.
Perfect, thank you.
In 3, specifically to determine if driveway aprons are the responsibility of the lot owner or the easement owners. Why is there a question? I've always understood it to be when you start to, when you build on a lot, at some point in time, within a specified period of time, you need to put in, the lot owner needs to put in an apron.
No.
That's in the CC scenario, she's wanting to find out if it's actually legal. If she's trying to say, is the LCA responsible for that, or is the homeowner? Yes, it's in the CCNRs.
Why was that in question? I just wondered, I didn't know that it was actually in question, that it was not the responsibility.
Yeah, is that saying the LCA was responsible for putting aprons in?
It's actually one of the things of the lawsuit.
Right.
But I think it's being asked as a question. It isn't being said that either one is right. It's just being asked as a question.
Determine which is.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with
It's
that.
a question whether you could bring up the roadway to pavement, where does roadway
Because
start?
that road, because the apron is technically on
Yeah,
easement. Right.
so a good lawyer would argue, you only have to bring it into the property.
Right.
That's what the thing
So
is.
it's kind of,
Just want to back up when we talked about the legalities of the CCNRs. And I don't know if everybody's been here long enough, or maybe everybody's been here long enough, but the CCNRs were challenged in court. And the court ruling, as far as I understand it, was the CCNRs are withheld by the courts. The CCNRs are enforceable.
What year was that?
When we did the special assessment, we repaved all the roads, put a $400 per lot fee in.
Yeah, there's been some changes in
And that was challenged.
What year was that? 2000?
Pre-2000.
Just a guess.
Yeah, I guess 90s, 80s, what?
No, it would have been
Oh, no, long.
in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Wasn't that long ago. We had chip
2005.
seal roads, and we did proper paved roads on top of the chip seal, and there was a $400 per lot assessment that the board of directors put in to raise the money to repave all the roads. It was challenged in court, and we went to court, and it was upheld in court. And I think out of that, all the CCNRs are enforceable by Leilani, by law. So ag doesn't matter, the CCNRs are enforceable, the way they are. And you can check with more of the people who are on there, but I know they were challenged. And they were upheld.
Thanks, Bob. Is there a time frame for the formation of the 4 to 7, 3 to 7, whatever it says, 3 to 7 members? I mean, this is great. We need to work on the document, and then we want to form a committee. Is that within a month, within?
We've got one volunteer now, Jim.
No.
Well, that's why there's an invitation to join, to come into the committee so that we can work on it, right? Because we're starting new, so we would like to have a new document. This document, it has to be renewed, reviewed, or whatever it needs to do in order for the community to be satisfied with these.
Could I recommend that we hear from the lawyer in terms of a step? Find out from the lawyer, get an opinion if we can modify or if we're just blowing into the wind on the CCRs. Then, if we can take action, let's get a committee and figure out what we want to do.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. 3 to 7 people.
What?
The committee, 3 to 7 people.
3 to 7.
Yeah.
Yes. I have one more. You have 3 already.
Delegation of authority, I have 2 issues in this one.
As do I.
One,
Maybe we should read first.
Yeah.
This committee shall have access to all LCA files and complaint letters that involve CCNR issues. This committee shall have the right to access to the LCA lawyer for consultation and clarification of applicable laws governing CCNR enforcement. This committee shall have the right to choose their membership without.
Wow.
That's a conflict.
It's actually against the law.
so that has to be deleted, and the other thing is the committee would not have access to the LCA
Correct.
attorney.
Right.
Correct.
They would have to bring questions to the board would give it a try.
Right. Typically, what a committee is doing is just making advisements to the board, and the board makes all the actions.
Right.
Every single action is made by the board.
Okay, so the committee would have to, the committee will request any legal advice to the board and get a written response from them. Okay. Okay.
And in some fashion, I don't know how to deal with this particular issue, but it's kind of like the leaks in Washington DC, because this isn't the board, it's a committee. There could be conflicting opinions of the members. I don't want to see that thrown out on the social media and everything else. It needs to be brought to the board or discussed in closed quarters. So that's part of the standards of behavior, whatever, of the people on the committees.
Yeah, there's also, on this first paragraph, there's nothing wrong with, the first sentence, there's nothing wrong with the sentence, this committee shall have access to all LCA files and complaint letters. What that involves is a very high level of implied security within that committee. That absolutely nothing gets discussed outside of that committee to anyone because all of those things are private conversations. It isn't like board meetings which have to be public. Letters that I'm sending to a committee, for example, I have an implicit expectation of privacy.
And the risk of liability
Right.
if we violate that.
Right.
So the confidentiality.
Yeah, we don't have a confidentiality.
So add on there, would that go under the authority? On delegation of authority?
I think
Or would
it's
that be under standard committee procedures? And we have,
procedures, I think.
Yeah, we'll put a confidentiality, then would have to be, they would have to agree to a confidentiality.
One way that could be handled would be for CC&R complaints or violations to be discussed completely anonymously with no names ever attached to them, so that the board could talk about them, and it would take away all bias, it would take away all, and that way too, no one would have the opportunity to expose any individual to loss of privacy.
Andy, I like that, okay, but who determines?
Yeah, right.
Is that the board determines? We've had a complaint filed by person A. Who determines when we, A, make that public or bring it to the attention of the committee without identification of the person filing the complaint?
I think it would be that every single CC&R report would go before the committee without.
Go before one person on the committee.
But
Actually, no, the committee is to determine what can be changed or edited on the CC&R. The CC&Rs are still handled by the PRD.
correct, absolutely right. Yes.
So those will still come to
You're
PRD.
100% right.
CCNRs are handled by.
Will be handled by, we decided
Actions, right.
about a month ago that we will not have an individual, because the person who's in charge of the CC&R is the single-handedly the most hated person in all of Leilani states. So instead of having one person that's hated, we decided the entire board
Right, sure.
will handle the CC&R. That way there's not just one person that's required.
Trying to recruit people to join.
That way you can dislike us all equally, so there's not going to be one person responsible.
So my question is, because now I'm a little bit confused,
Yeah.
this committee therefore is not implementing CC&R
Just investigate.
procedures. I mean, this committee is not voting, here's what you're saying, it's not voting, oh yes, this particular property is in violation. That vote is taken by the board of directors.
So there's a life
Section
expectancy time to this.
Yeah, so in fact, I wonder,
Section 5 would not be applicable. The committee will,
No, the committee can make suggestions,
Right,
because we're still working, so they
recommendations,
bring their
absolutely.
findings to the board, we,
okay.
Right,
this is one of the dumbest things we've ever heard this year, great, this is better than sliced bread.
right.
So we'll take and we'll work out a thing that works for everyone.
Okay.
and they can do research on looking at other communities around the world that have effective CC&R policies.
Okay.
And what we want.
Moving on.
Okay, so we'll be meeting once a week this is the research phase, right? Committee members may be asked to call or email residents to ensure that communication and a clear understanding of the alleged violation. So, we'll be contacting them. And, members will be required to document all interaction with the resident.
No.
No documentation?
No, not that, it's just the committee will not be involved with the CC&R.
Right, yeah, that's the part that
That's-
goes to
that's gotta
the
come out.
board. So,
But I'm sure that could actually be a legal issue as well, I'm guessing.
So it sounds like your major function is going to be reviewing what is currently on the books, suggesting changes, and seeing whether or not how the changes could be implemented. Is that a fair summary?
Correct. Well, because you're exactly right, because what you could run into is two identical situations being dealt with quite differently by two different people. And what you guys want is an absolutely consistent letter drafted by your attorney that goes out every single time to every single person with absolute equanimity.
Yeah, the CC&Rs have to be processed,
Right.
a timeline, everything all the way down.
And so, Robert, if a new issue comes up, 6 months from now, the board then comes to this committee and says, can you investigate this or discuss it amongst you?
Yes,
And make a recommendation back to the board.
definitely.
All the enforcement's handled at the board level.
Colin, how long did you give yourself to actually get this committee up and running? Which I think basically is Jim's question. How long do you think it's going to take?
We're already starting to do some research
Who's the lead?
my committee member,
Okay.
Deborah President,
Right.
yes. And we will submit the other names for you to approve.
What's the approval process by the board
What-
to approve members? How do you approve members?
Or-
Got members that she approved?
No, not yet. This is, so, this is like, ad hoc basis, I guess is the best word to use.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I guess I got my horse before the cart, but,
right, right. So maybe you could.
I thought we gotta reach outside this room, because
Yeah.
they're not gonna be made up of members in this
Right.
room.
so,
This is the first-
Also, it's very common on a committee to think of every seat on a committee as essentially a job position, that your people are seated on a committee by virtue of bringing a particular skill or a particular background or insight as to, it's often not filled with just people who are interested in being in that committee.
I mean, the biggest thing about any of this is that there's actually interest. People are willing to put a committee together and people are willing
Mhm.
to be involved. Or like I said in the past, they couldn't get sometimes 2 or 3 board members to show up to meeting, let alone people. So this, personally, I think it's huge. But that's it.
yes, and I also like to, recommend that we have, what is the, criteria for approving, someone who wants to join the committee. That's my question to you folks.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like that's important to have that in place, so in case, this comes up again as a standing committee or.
Well, technically, a board doesn't have to justify a vote, they can just take a vote and it can stand. But what you could do as the committee chair is to essentially give your reason for nominating that person, the qualifications and
So Robert's question, I think, was about timeline. Just last week, it's been 7 days, somebody said, let's come up with some charters, and lo and behold, look at all this wonderful work. I think step one is get with the attorney, let's set a time within a week, come back next week and report the attorney says we can or can't proceed, or whatever the attorney. Then we'll set a time frame for the committee formation and running orders.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Conrad.
Thank you so much.
So grab Deborah.
Okay, the audit, systematic, quality management system implementation. Wow, looks like we have to really get started on this. Okay. Purpose of it is to evaluate the current operation systems used by the LCA, suggest changes which will promote communication and response to the membership when they have any concern. Also create clarity of job descriptions, policies, procedures for incoming board members. Allow the LCA to be assured that items that could end up in lawsuits are managed, so legal liabilities are minimized and public trust and goodwill are maximized.
Beautiful set.
Excellent.
Okay?
That's good.
So, then the type of committee we expect is, this would be a special committee that would end at the implementation stage of the quality system. However, if you want to make it a standing committee, it's always a good idea to have internal audits yearly. So if you want to make it a standing audit committee, you can have them go in and audit. Membership. Initially, 5 members. I said two people last week, but then I realized we've got to do booklets on each one of you guys' jobs. We got to do booklets for Kim's job. We've got to do procedures for office for you guys, and make sure that all those things comply with law. And comply with our governing documents, and comply with our CC&Rs and bylaws. So there is a lot of background work, and there's going to be a lot of compilation work in creating these book folders and booklets. We also thought that it would be really good if we had a booklet, an information booklet for the residents when they come in. Here's the position that handles this. Here's the position that handles this. And by the way, here's HVO's emergency number if we smell gas. Here's civil defense's number if you happen to see lava. Here's this and that. Here's Red Cross. You know, all those kind of resources. So we have a good, concise book for our residents when they come in, just for safety, yeah. because we live where we live. And we can't forget that again. We just can't. Okay, so that's why I'm thinking, instead of 2 members, I'd like to get 5 members. And hopefully I'm going to try to get someone who is familiar with HOA management. I want to get somebody who's familiar with office management. I want to get somebody who has a lot of experience if I can find someone. And I would love, and I want someone who's familiar with the laws, the nonprofit laws and the HOA laws. So, you know, those are the kind of caliber of people that I'm looking for, and I'm not sure I'm going to find them in Leilani. I might have to go Leilani 1, I might have to go HPP, I might have to go outside to get the people I need to do this correctly. Andy?
Deborah, wouldn't a lot of this stuff be, like for example, job descriptions, and a lot of those you'll be able to use other kind of boilerplate documents. And then the other aspect of this, I've been doing some research on, there are fabulous national organizations that we could join as an HOA that already have done a great deal of this legwork, that we practically would have to do nothing other than insert the name LCA into it. And a lot of it will do specificity by state. And so you know, 421J, where we have to completely comply with that, they'd make absolutely. And so I see this would be a match made in heaven for an HOA management organization. The ones I've looked at, it might cost $50 a month, it might cost us $80 a month, but I think it would be money.
We already have a connection with homeowners association.
Yeah, and I think it would be just money so well spent. You know, that we wouldn't be reinventing the wheel.
I agree.
Good.
Any templates, anything we can get to help us move forward with this?
So I have one point, it's really on principle. I'm embarrassed that we would ask someone in Lane 181 or HPP to serve on this committee. This is our mess. You know, we're responsible for our house.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are we, I mean, why are we asking someone to volunteer their time to help clean up our mess?
Well, if we can
This is-
find people.
Well, if people want to do it, I'm not saying don't.
Yeah.
But I would make this, for me, I would make it the responsibility of the Leilani residents. You live here, you have, I believe, a certain civic responsibilities, and part of that civic responsibility is going to be serving on this committee.
Right.
But to farm this out to other people,
Well, it could be handled by, I'm bringing in a guest speaker.
Oh,
I'm
right.
bringing in a consultant tonight
Right.
who's an expert and has this, long background.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying
Yeah.
somebody who works daily on this committee.
Right, but I mean, that would be the way to bring in outside.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
This would
And I
also,
hear your concern too,
this would also be a really good committee to, in the board's chartering of this committee, would be to acknowledge the fact that it may need a budget. So for example, if you're going to bring in somebody who's going to help you with an accounting system, or that you may have to hire somebody to do it, and you may not want to do it with a volunteer, you may want to do, or an HR specialist or something like that. So you might want to think about this committee actually having the possibility of asking for funding.
Yeah, if I'm limited to Leilani residents for my committee members, I may need a budget, absolutely. Absolutely.
Although the only thing I would say, I don't think you've reached out to the community yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
we've
talent
talked, we got a couple of people interested in helping us. So, yeah, we can look and reach out. I did not want to reach out to the general committee until I had a go-ahead with the charter.
Right.
I wanted to get started this last week. It was hard not to, but Kim wasn't ready for me to come in. She had things to do and she wanted to talk to Mark. So we'll see who talks to Kim. So, we've got to move forward with this. So even now more than ever, I think, and get some things documented from the previous board or from whatever we can garnish to create this system quickly and get it up and running. Yeah.
3 comments. One is we need to set a timeline too. I love Andy's idea of let's find out who's out there with associations, with templates,
Yeah.
that can cut to the quick, that's a great
Right.
thing, we should say we're gonna research that within the next couple weeks
Absolutely,
and come back. I like that idea a lot.
right,
Next, however, is we need to be acutely aware of the imposition of new structure on existing personnel.
exactly.
It's easy to walk into Kim and say, no, Kim, you have to make coffee before you turn on the computer, or whatever, when she's been doing the exact opposite. And that has to be dealt with very delicately, or
It
we're gonna
has
have
to.
turnover,
It's
and we don't
people,
want that.
it's people first, and it's so important. That's why I could not have a meeting until Kim could be there. Because Kim has to be an integral part of this committee. And so whoever does talk to Kim, we need to make sure she's aware that this has to be part of, and we also have to let her know that we are not going into her house to tear it down. We are coming to her house to clean it up and help her.
Actually, she'd probably be a very good resource.
Yeah,
She's been doing this a long time.
she's only been here 2 years.
Yeah, the only thing I might say, as just ever so slight devil's advocate for that, having a single employee help create protocols and guidelines, and then having that employee quit for whatever reason, a week later, what we're really looking for is the best way to do it.
Right,
And Kim, hopefully, and I believe, I know Kim well enough, I think, will see the best way to do it as a good way to do it. But what you don't want to do is to say, because it's been done this way in the past, out of respect, we'll continue to do it that way, even though it's a bad way to do it.
no, that's not what an audit does.
Okay.
That's not what a quality program does. Quality program goes in, finds out what the person's doing now, documents it, analyzes it, researches it, graphs it out to make sure it's logical, to make sure there's no wasted steps, to make sure that all the bases get covered with that procedure. If they do, and it's efficient, and it's covering all the bases, we don't touch it. But if we find that there's a problem with just putting it in an envelope and expecting someone to see it, and not having a stamp or having them sign off that they saw it, those are the things we're looking for to do, is to create accountability, create paper trails, and always though, it's all about supporting the person in the office, supporting her, making her life easier by actually also incorporating some of her ideas probably. Because most of the time when I've gone into offices and I've worked with the people, I work with over 500 people and creating the procedures and so forth for their jobs. You cannot do it by just shoving some papers at them and say, this is how you're going to do it now. You have to have their buy-in. So we got to go to Kim and say, let's work together. I want to see, what you do.
We get it.
Okay. All right, yeah, move on. Okay. So initially I was going to work with Carnegie as my board member chair. I'm going to do the chairing, but if you need a board member on it, then she would be my board member. And let's see, the duties would be limited to audit, evaluation, suggestions for improvement for the operations system. And we do a complete systems audit, determine compliance with state and county laws. We would research methods, familiarization with laws, creation of audit checklists, and documentation of findings, and then corrective actions. We're going to need training for the committee, probably 2 to 4 hours, depending on what kind of caliber of people I get on the committee. And if you guys know any auditors out there, and any of your neighbors, they're an auditor, please beg them to come. Beg them to come help. Say, you only have to give us just give us 1 year. That's the way I'm feeling about this. I've never done this before, but after this eruption, I'm like, I want to help. I want to help. I'm willing to give it a year, and that's what I'm doing here. So hopefully we get other people to do so. Okay, we create the booklets for job procedures, policy binders for the board, for the employees, information booklet for the residents. We will need access to all the documentation, and if we have to do a confidentiality agreement on the committee members, we'll have to, but we have to follow the paper. And absolutely no one can push
limited
stuff
access.
out.
I don't like that.
Yeah, that's how,
Okay, both of these, we're gonna have to run by the attorney and.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely,
Check them out.
absolutely.
And
You know, and
you
again,
can never open personnel files.
So,
even for an audit,
No. No, personnel files are.
we'll have the attorney.
confidential.
Yes.
On that, so-
yeah, talk to the attorney about internal audit procedures.
Yep.
Okay, I think that,
Let's go ahead and jump to the committee's procedures. We'll skip the delegation.
okay.
You understand the committee?
And then we're gonna meet a couple times a week, for training, audit activities, I'm figuring 1 to 2 days a week. Probably 3 to 5 hours a day for that day. And then we'll be giving suggestions to the board, and we will be figuring 90 days for implementation of corrective actions, and then a re-audit of the area that was where the corrective actions were taken. So I'm hoping we can have this done within 10 months. Okay?
Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
So, let's see, discussion speed bumps.
No, wait a second, I have to do this.
Tourist committee.
Tourist committee, okay.
Draft charter, board of directors, LCA committee on tourism. To explore the question whether the LCA should regulate tourism within section 2 or not take any action on this question. If the committee on tourism decides in favor of the former, that is, that it should regulate tourism, then it needs to decide how regulation is appropriate. So in other words, there has to be a clear decision that the committees make a recommendation that tourism is something Leilani, that they recommend that Leilani Community Association should regulate. What that regulation looks like, we're not getting to that yet, but just that making a commitment to regulation. Or if they come to the conclusion, in fact, that we don't want to regulate tourism, that also needs to be clear. But I think that's sort of like the binary choice we have here right now. Any comments on that?
Robert, the committee recommends or makes a recommendation
To the board. To the board.
The board votes in
Yeah,
regard.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Type of committee. If the BOD decides that tourism should be regulated, then the committee should be a standing committee as the issue of tourism will be ongoing. If the BOD decides that tourism should not be regulated, then the committee will have fulfilled its function and cease to exist.
Straightforward.
Good.
Membership. COT should consist of at least one director from the board. Membership should be drawn from the Leilani community, section 2. Membership should include people who hold a variety of opinions regarding tourism, do not want to regulate tourism, want to regulate to keep tourism out of Leilani, want to regulate tourism so both the community and tourists benefit, and who are willing to change their perspective based on the information presented.
Ah, there's a rub. Huh? Good one. Heard those chickens.
So, I mean, obviously this is a hot issue, and I'm calling for people to get together and who are honest enough to say, I will look at all the information, and work together on this committee.
Robert, what about some kind of a clause that says that membership will not be by any person who's affiliated or part of the tourism industry?
Oh, all right, well, that's a possibility.
That's a good one.
Right. So would that exclude me because I run an Airbnb?
But you want people there that's pro-tourism, why would you want to take that out?
Yeah, well, I'm asking you the question.
It's just a question that I think that needs to be discussed.
I think that, yeah.
COT should aim to have between 6 to 8 members. Chairperson, the chair and vice chair, so I said vice chair, you're going to call co-chair for mine, will be nominated by the committee and approved by the BOD. A process of consensus minus one will be used for both nominations. And when I mean by consensus minus one, if two or more people object to the nominations, then the nomination fails. I really want to work on this committee working together, developing consensus.
If two or more people what, on the board?
Two or more people on the committee are against the nomination. For a nomination for either chair or co-chair, needs to have a consensus behind it from the committee. The committee needs to put forward a chair and co-chair who have the support of like 90% of that committee.
So we're talking just nominations of the chair
Yeah,
and co-chair?
yeah, right, because the board needs to approve those nominations.
Okay, all right.
Delegation of authority and committee procedures. COT is empowered to do the necessary work in order to accomplish its purpose. It may go outside the committee to find answers to its questions, including hiring consultants. All proposed expenses of the COT must be approved by the board of directors. It is the responsibility of the Committee on Transport and Tourism to present to the board a proposed course of action that the board must approve before it is implemented. The BOD expects that the COT to arrive at an initial answer to the purpose question within 6 months. If the COT decides to regulate tourism, then it has a period of 1 year to develop and implement a plan from the date of its decision to regulate or not regulate tourism. It is the responsibility of the COT to monitor the implementation of the plan. All final plans must be approved by the BOD. The BOD should receive monthly reports from the BOD representative on the COT about the progress of the committee. The frequency and duration of meetings of COT will be determined by the committee. All decisions will be made on the basis of consensus minus one. A BOD representative on the COT will assume responsibility for getting the committee launched, but will not necessarily serve as the chair of the
What is the meaning of all final plans must be approved?
So the committee will come up with a plan, game plan.
So if, in other words, if we're not do tourism, then it ceases to exist.
Right.
Committee.
Right.
If we are, the plan is who, what, where, when, how.
Exactly. And the board must approve that.
The only issue I really see is the delegation of authority in committee procedures. The board can't actually be involved in tourism, so there should be no expenses. Why would they be paying for something? I would have.
Well, I think they will, let's ask the lawyer.
Well, the other thing,
Just like the others, we need to consult with.
Right, that's it, I don't think that's necessarily true.
wouldn't the info that, I mean, I could see an example of that being bringing in someone from, I just heard this fabulous talk from a person on the island of Kauai about they're working to regulate tourism on the island of Kauai. And so maybe you bring in a person to give you background on that and you pick up their airfare. And so there might be an expense, you know, that you would decide that person is worth listening to. I'm just off the top of my head.
Any suggestions? Anyone here who's
Andy,
interested?
it's not your cousin. You can't fly your cousin over, but it's a good idea.
Anyone here present who'd be interested in serving on this committee?
I'd be interested, but I have a caveat. I work full time and I travel.
Right, okay,
And
so
well,
there's,
Wednesday, so.
right, I get that, and there's technology available to.
The other thing is, we're just on the verge of leaving the island for 3 weeks. We won't make next week's meeting.
Okay.
I don't know how to stay in touch with what's going on other than the website.
Well, website, you know, social media, give your phone, you can give your phone call.
Okay.
You can call, you know, to get in touch. You know, are you interested, Robin, in serving on this?
I know Jeffrey's, I'm not sure.
Okay, anyone else? So I apologize if I cut your name.
Janet Morrow.
Janet, right, thank you. Anyone else here?
I'll look into it, I might.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I don't know if I'm necessarily gonna be that person on the committee. I just volunteered to write this thing out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, these were good efforts, guys. In 1 week, pretty extraordinary.
Okay. Moving on. Mile Street. Speed bumps.
It's on duty.
We gotta move on, man.
Yeah, we gotta move on. Decision on, speed bumps on Mile Street. What's going on with that? Mark's gone now, it's up to us now, so.
We can't do anything until we talk to people, so.
Yes, I know. Who's gonna take point on talking to people?
Yes, I will.
We'll send you know, we can tomorrow, I'll get the contact information, we'll get them involved. Anybody else want to talk?
Can you just refresh for people who were last week? They're gonna ask everybody on Miley if they want speed bumps or not.
Right.
Well, and so my question is, if any one person objects, will that shut it down?
No.
If
Okay.
10 people want, one person says no, no.
Okay, very good.
Consensus,
Very good. Thank you.
And a minor point is, I heard Mark refer to them as speed humps as opposed to bumps.
Right.
Speed humps are a lot more mellow. They still do the same thing, but they're not as,
Right.
jarring to you.
Well, it says here, bumps.
I know.
We're getting bumps. Let's see. Okay, set date for, every day for meeting candidates.
So I'd like to propose that at the end of this meeting, the four of us get together and discuss this, given what happened today, and we'll come to some
We'll
conclusion.
set a date.
Yes.
Because we've got a lot of vacancies.
Right.
Go ahead.
Jim, I have some issues with regard to that in terms of the people that were on the pick list that didn't get selected. Are they automatically going to be, they submitted interviews already.
Right.
If they
But I
cannot
don't-
submit their name, no.
Have you told them that?
Yeah, it was very clear, I put a
yeah,
reminder,
very clear.
I put a reminder out, and it just means, just call Kim, email Kim, and say, I'm interested in the position,
So
period.
don't they have 2 more days to do that?
I'll put it out again tomorrow.
Good idea.
Thank you, I will do that tomorrow.
And we're including.
Yeah, and I believe we're gonna come up with a statement, given what's happened here tonight, that will go out tomorrow to the community. Because there's obviously far more urgency about the situation now than there was even before.
Previously, we had public interviewing, okay, with questions submitted and so on. Are you guys, I don't know what your qualifications are interviewing wise or experience, but you can get yourself into some difficulty. Are you guys going to make it public, record the meeting, record the interview so we can get feedback on whatever? In other words, if you
We're
don't,
planning on getting a closed session.
No.
you're gonna leave yourself open to allegations of any number of biases, offended bias, and whatever.
It's gonna be open to that regardless. There's already people complaining we're meeting once a week instead of once a month.
Right.
You're not gonna get people out, I'm sorry. Well, they're literally.
No, I mean, I don't think you understood what an affinity bias is. If you just select somebody, it's the same issue we're already talking about. If you don't select someone, I was approached last week by someone who said, has it even occurred to you that maybe the board doesn't want individual because they think they can't work with him or get along? That's an affinity bias. That's a violation and it's serious consequences. There's others, so I just want to make sure that we, the association, are protected from allegations that come up later, like this lawsuit. I don't know what the Vinnie lawsuit's all about, that there were bias and prejudices shown, and you only selected 2 or 3 more people that think exactly the same way you do, because you didn't like that somebody had an opposite stance. On one of these, it said we're looking for differing opinions. That's a great thing, and we should recruit people with different opinions. If 4 out of 7 people vote, the other 3 just lost. That's just the rule. So they can have a different opinion, but unless they can prevail or provide a good argument, they don't continue. They accept the decision. But the interviewing process, as Andy said, it's an HR issue or potentially an
No, it's not. Absolutely not, no.
Well, interviewing is.
No, a board interview is not an HR issue. Absolutely not. Doesn't have to follow HR protocol. May I just say something as to what you... The bylaws are absolutely clear about the authority of the board to make a decision in this. And so anything about bias or is purely outside of the purview of the bylaws. The board has a very clearly legal mandate to act in a particular way. And the other thing that I say, just speaking for me as a person, nothing to do with the bylaws, we just gave these people the authority to act on our behalf, and I'm willing to have them now begin to act on my behalf. I don't want to second guess them on every single thing. I didn't vote for every person on this board, but I'm now prepared to trust this board. And I think that as a community, beginning to grow that trust is the way we have to move forward.
It's a civic responsibility.
Absolutely.
I accept Andy, and I like Andy, I don't disagree with you. So I won't even argue the points. I just want to make sure that all of the people are given exactly the same fair, open, honest consideration without any kind of bias. We have to trust you, Andy's correct, and the document is clear. That still doesn't preclude someone from getting a burr up their butt, coming back and trying to say, I was discriminated against because. And we don't want any influence whatsoever of that happening.
It's out of our hands.
May I change the subject?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, since I am going off online shortly, I would like to ask about the Freedom of Aid Committee. I don't see any mention.
Right, but unfortunately, no one took point on that, and so it's our board responsibility to get that prepared for next meeting.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm very interested in the.
Okay, great. Do you want to do this? Do you want to draft a charter?
No.
Maybe you would.
No, I just don't think I could surround myself while I'm there.
All right, but that's our responsibility. I mean, we have more committees to create, and unfortunately, that's not get created, and we'll get that done.
That's good news.
Yes.
Okay, old business, what's the, you
Um,
gotta explain this one.
which one?
Old
Oh, I
business.
got that from Mark. That's
What is that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Mark
um,
was
moving on. Funds for Common Car Street. I've got to talk to
So-
Mark about a lot of things to catch up.
May I make a straight introduction on that? I'd like to ask the board to consider a Leilani resident, Kyle Rogers, who owns a large E10, and I'd like the board at least to reach out to Kyle for a bid on the job. His equipment's right here in Leilani,
Right.
and as an individual, I used him twice for jobs. There were much smaller jobs than cutting a road through, but I found him to be impeccably honest and absolutely trustworthy.
Still on Pomacai?
He's still on Pomacai.
And is he insured?
Huh?
Is he insured?
I don't know. I can't answer any of that.
I've talked to him about it. He's given me a quote of $300 an hour for his D11 or his commensurate, bigger than,
Yeah, it's something larger than a D10.
and he said he could also bring in his excavator if he needs to, and that was gonna be $200 an hour.
And he understands how big the channel is.
Well, but
We were up there,
Okay.
we've been there. and-
What are we trying to do to refresh this?
Dude, we're getting a quote to see what's going to cost to get access to the Kibuka, or Kibuka Road.
To get access to.
To the Kipuka, there's 6 houses that are basically blocked right now.
Okay, Leilani.
And
Right, and Mark actually went to speak to Mike Calatini this week, I heard, and got some information about possibly using PGV road.
So basically, what they were talking about, using PGV and coming through Poiki Road and coming up
oh wow.
the bottom of the neighborhood versus cut through, it's a shorter route.
The other thing is, I do know there was talk about getting quotes. I'm in complete agreement with John on this. I think that you guys should very seriously consider contracting on an hourly basis rather than a quote basis. I have two reasons for that. The first is, I did a lot of work in my life on something this unknown. I would have bid through the roof to cover myself for what I might run into. The second thing is, when you start cutting back those roads, there's actually the possibility the road won't be able to complete. The lava's still too hot. And if you go into it on a contract basis and the contract is not completed, it's going to open a lawsuit. If you're doing it an hourly and somebody pulls off your job, it's over. You pay them for what they did. You don't like the way they're doing it, you fire them and you bring a new guy in. And so I think the board should very seriously consider doing that on an hourly basis.
Oh, Kyle quoted me on by the hour, he said, I would love to quote or bid on it, but I'd have to bid on it, because it's unknown, so he gave me a ballpark figure of $30,000 to $35,000, but by the hour, it could be less, could be considerably less. I got the same number from geothermal, their guy who did for the rough cut into their place on a 30-foot wide right of way, which is twice as wide as what we need. He said 35 to 50,000 for that road. This isn't paving it again, this is a rough road. If I have to get a 4-wheel drive to go up there, that's fine, I can live with that. So we have 6 homes that are still staying. There's more than, there's 6 homes and 10 pieces of property taken. The road coming in from the geothermal, they were willing to help us out there, but as soon as they started saying we got to cross the county road, they said they've had enough of the county trying to get their project done. This is, I see the guys, I was up at the house for the weekend, we can see the guys walking around, there's a quarter mile away. But if we go that route, also, we're 10 miles away from this office.
10 miles away from what?
This office.
Okay.
So we're basically not in the community anymore as far as I'm concerned.
So if you were given the choice of being able to go home in the next 3 to 4 weeks versus what might take months, would that be a
The
difference?
Kahukai Road could be done in days.
No, but I'm saying if they hit hot lava, if something like that.
It's not going to be hard. The river bed is down here down to the pavement now. That major part of it stretch across. It's warm. The berm is warm, but I'm walking in on the other side and it's hot.
I know the biggest issue Earth Carvers had was the height of the wall. They've got to come back on private property to get that stuff.
Mark was talking about that, and Kyle doesn't seem to think so. If he uses an excavator,
Yeah, that's
down. If you're going to go wandering around looking for a place to get a D9 or whatever they're going to use, yeah, they're going to have to go wandering away out somewhere.
So Kyle's saying basically he can work the side of the channel with the excavator and pull down the
Just to get enough to get his machine down the bottom.
or whatever he's got.
John, that's the same thing.
When it gets to the other side, there's no problem with working the channel right up the street. It's just this berm on this side is
The guy that I talked to said by the judicious switching back and forth between an excavator and a dozer, that the job would be a much less expensive job than trying to do it either one or the other.
a surveyor quoted me $1,400 a survey.
The whole strip.
That was Evan. I haven't got his number, but Evan does a lot of it.
All right,
And the same person, we talked last week about possibly repairing Capono.
component.
We're gonna wait at least 6 months for you to look at that.
You talking about that? Wait, are we talking about asphalt? Or are we just talking about?
Just repairing all the big
potholes. Yeah, we're not ready for asphalt, but we can. I think we can fix potholes. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing them myself in the last 3 days when I fill them in.
Well, I'm just wondering if we're gonna excavate some material we can put in the potholes, that's why.
Right now,
You're saying transport material from over there to, I think there's plenty of material.
there's no shortage of material.
We have plenty of lava everywhere.
Potholes, the one going in from Leilani on the corner, that's a county.
That's our county.
Can we get somebody to, how do we,
Cool, John.
There's a bad pothole right at her curve.
Yeah.
Am I right? Is that what you're talking about? Right at the curve?
Yeah, I would have
Right
at
before
the top of the
Miley.
neighborhood.
yeah, before Milan.
Okay.
We still have to stay and talk about some things, so we're gonna have to cut it closer over time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you, you guys. Thank you very much.
Nice job on the charges.
Yeah.
We need a lot of work.